Hey guys, welcome to the Marriage Ignited podcast. I'm Adrian.
And I am Jennifer Pina. We are here to bring you practical and spiritual tools that will ignite your marriage.
Episode 1, y'all. It's finally here. We are so excited to be able to launch this podcast. We've been praying about it, and the time has finally come. So, in this introductory episode, we'd like to tell you a little bit about who we are, but also tell you kind of why marriage matters, and give you a little bit about what this podcast is going to be all about, kind of the purpose behind it. So we look forward to be able to share that with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, our purpose. We really want to bring just practical tools. So, every single episode that we bring is going to have a takeaway, a practical tool that you can implement in your marriage that day, like immediately. Our goal is to keep it simple for you. Although marriage work isn't always simple,
Mhm.
I think that there's going to be some great opportunities for you to grow in your marriage.
How exciting is that,
Yeah.
right? And we are taking this podcast from the perspective of believing that God's view of marriage is the best view of marriage. And so we are unabashedly taking this from a Christian perspective. So not only are you going to get the practical, but you're also going to get the spiritual side of marriage as well. So we believe those two things work great in unison together. And I think that's going to be fruitful for all you guys who view this podcast and listen to this podcast.
So, why a podcast? Why take the time to do this? Why does marriage even matter? Adrian and I have always had a real heart for marriage from the very beginning. I remember having a professor when I started my master's degree, who was talking about being married to his wife for like 35 years, something like that. And he said to everyone, this was like the very first marriage and family class I ever took when I was in college. And he said to everyone in that class, he said, if you want to have a healthy marriage, you need to have a date night every week, basically.
Yeah.
And he was like, for 35 years, they've had a date night. And he really poured into us the importance of investing in your marriage. And so that stuck with me. I remember coming home from that class. Do you remember that
Oh,
night?
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was all fired up. I was like, honey, we are having date nights. This is going to happen. I was all fired up, and it was it made such an impact in my life for sure.
And I think it really set the course for our marriage. We say a lot to couples that we've had opportunities to counsel and various different things. We say about making your marriage a high priority.
Yeah.
All of life really is about a bunch of making various different decisions, right? And those decisions are
Mhm.
often based upon priorities. And so your marriage has to be a priority. And so that's kind of always the way that we have kind of envisioned it. And
Yeah.
because of that, that's allowed us to have some fruit in that area. And so we're so grateful. But God designed marriage with tremendous purpose. And every time that I read the account of creation in Genesis, I'm always blown away with everything that God created. He said he was good, except one thing. The only thing that he said wasn't good is when he told Adam, he said that Adam didn't have somebody suitable like him, and it wasn't good for man to be alone. That's the only thing that God said wasn't good.
Wow.
And he wasn't saying basically that he was just saying that loneliness in that way and not having another human to relate to was not a good thing, even though he had the animals, he had God with him, and all these various different things. And so when we see right from the very beginning, God's first marriage, he basically gives Eve to Adam, and like it's like him walking her down the aisle, specifically creating her for Adam to have this special type of relationship that is so unique in that way. So it's tremendous to see that.
Yeah, and in marriage, we have this beautiful picture of intimacy. The intimacy that we have in marriage is a beautiful model here on earth for the intimacy that we can have with God. But
Mhm.
it goes far beyond that. And for me, I love the imagery of the sandpaper. And I think you're going to share a little bit more about that. But I
Mhm.
think that marriage provides the opportunity for growth that many other systems in our life don't have,
Very true.
right? So
Mhm.
marriage provides this beautiful opportunity to be
Mhm.
stretched to grow in like these enormous ways that maybe we wouldn't grow
Mhm.
as much if we weren't married. I don't know.
I would say so, yeah, because if you think about it, your spouse knows you better than any other human in the world, right?
Mm.
And so when you have that level of intimacy in knowing each other, you know how to rub each other the right way or the wrong way. And so like we use this illustration of sandpaper, and
Yes.
Jen says this always so perfectly. She talks about how I'm her best sandpaper
Mm.
and vice versa she is for me as well.
Yeah.
We talk about when God presented Eve, it was like that completion. She
Mm.
brought to Adam what he lacked, and there was like a complementary relationship between Adam then Eve, and so when we see that in a marriage relationship, I bring certain things to the table, Jen brings certain things to the table, and those things kind of erode away and kind of wipe away as like sandpaper, those kind of rough edges in that sense. And so yes, she is my best sandpaper that God has given me. Mm.
Wow, that process isn't easy though, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
hurts. It's painful. You realize, I remember I tell the story that when we first got married, I was this awesome, God loving, Jesus girl, fresh out of Bible college, all on fire for the Lord. And we got married, and within a few months of our marriage, I was like, who is this monster? I
Yeah.
didn't even recognize myself, you guys. And really, it wasn't that person, those issues, that selfishness, and that just commanding desire to be in control wasn't in me. It surely was in me, but it wasn't until I was in this beautiful marriage that some of that stuff started coming out of me. And God really had to deal with some of that, but it allowed me to grow in ways that I am so grateful for, that I needed, that were necessary for my life. Absolutely.
Yeah, and those things we wouldn't have seen, right?
Yeah.
It's like those things come out of you. Something changes immediately when you're married. The nature of the relationship kind of changes, and
Mm.
just those things start to come to the surface. So I know you want to talk a little bit more about just the caring and just kind of the relational aspect of marriage. So why don't you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously we care for one another, we sacrifice for one another. We really have to surrender our wills to one another
Hmm.
so often because whether it's a simple thing like doing a chore or where we're going to have dinner, preferring or surrendering our will to the other person, all of that really causes so much growth in our life. Yeah, I'm so
It's
grateful for it.
it's such a beautiful picture of the heart to be able to serve, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and if you can't serve your spouse, I mean, how are you going to serve any other relationship in that way, right? And so it's this beautiful picture, as you said, we say about his needs and her needs being met. It's this give and take where we're serving one another out of the abundance of the love and the commitment that we have to the relationship that we have with one another.
But it sure does take a ton of work.
Yeah, it does.
It does take a
Hmm.
ton of work. It's really an intentional choice to invest in our marriage, to build in our marriages um the kind of life that we want, the kind of
Hmm.
God honoring choices that we want. I think there's so much work related to it.
And there's so much uniqueness about the marriage relationship that only can be grown in that specific way. And the
Mm.
beautiful picture that it has of just Christ and Christ's church being the bride, right? And he is the groom. And so when we see his sacrificial kind of love exhibited on a human level, we get a faint picture of
Mm.
that in the context of marriage and what is to represent. And as you alluded to, marriage takes work,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything that is worth your time and your investment takes work, right? Just like any other relationship, but even on a deeper level, marriage just takes genuine work. And we believe that a lot of times within this culture, that it's very easy to just give that away and
Yeah.
just to not put the work and investment in it and just say, well, let's go ahead and just be done with it. When we see that it just really takes that level of work and commitment.
You guys, we're pouring our lives into so many things. Think about the things that you're pouring your life into, maybe a job, a career, maybe a ministry, maybe children, family, other projects, non for profits, whatever you're pouring your life into. Your marriage needs that energy and that
Hmm.
work as well. We have this saying that we love, and that is what you water grows.
Yep.
And it is just a beautiful picture. I kind of have started this past year learning how to grow plants, and I'm like amazed. So I water our plants every Monday. I've
Mhm.
before this year killed every plant that we've ever had in our home.
Truth statement right there.
And so I've just been learning, and I'm amazed that when I water the plant on Monday, I literally can see new leaves growing, sometimes that same day or later that week, I see new leaves and I'm like amazed. And it's such a beautiful picture of the simplicity that what we water grows. When you water your marriage, when you
Mhm.
actually invest in your marriage, whether that's through this podcast, whether that's implementing some of the tools that you're going to learn, um, whether that's setting aside some time to actually do the work for your marriage, all of those things, like when you water your marriage, it will grow.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
any time that you spend investing into it is never wasted time.
Yeah,
And so invest and make your marriage a priority.
yeah.
So, who are we? Let's tell you a little bit about ourselves. So, I'm a pastor of a church in central New Jersey called Shady Rest Bible Church, and I've been the lead pastor there for about 7 years. But Jen and I have been married 15 years now, by God's grace.
14 years.
Going on 15 years. I'm sorry.
Ah!
So, going on 15 years in that way. And so, but we met through unique circumstances in a way. We both attended a Bible college down in Texas. I'm originally from Massachusetts. Jen is originally from Ohio. And we met by way of Christ for the Nations Bible Institute in Dallas, Texas. And so, well,
Let me tell
no.
this story. I
Okay.
love this story. Okay, so we were going to this Bible college and we both attended school or churches that were pastored by the professors of that college. And these guys are best friends and they decided to merge their two
Hmm.
churches. And that is how I met my husband. So, of the new merged church, I became the church secretary. I was working on my bachelor's degree at the time.
Hmm.
Adrian was working on his bachelor's degree. And so we were both students. And so I was, serving at this church. And all of a sudden, just kept showing up in my office. And he kept showing up like all the time to the point where the staff were like asking him, like, what's your intentions with this woman?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't love at first sight. So I am a lot older than Adrian. I am
Mm-hmm.
actually 6.5 years older than my beloved husband here.
But it was just a unique way that God brought us together.
Yeah.
And it was just an incredible kind of way. And we knew right from the beginning, we were kind of done with the whole dating thing. And just
Mm.
immediately when we had when I woke up and smelled the coffee and realized my intentions, it was like immediately at that point it was serious and that we wanted to go forward in this relationship. And so it's been awesome. It's been
Yeah.
an incredible journey to this point. And so that's why we're invested in marriages. And so I have a master's degree in theology. So here's where you'll get the theological side. And Jen's degree, tell them a little bit about your
Yeah. So I
educational
have a
background.
master's degree in counseling. And when we lived in Texas, I was going through that whole process. But God moved us to New Jersey. So I have a master's degree in counseling. I'm not licensed or practicing, but we have definitely
Hmm.
been given the opportunity by God's grace to pour into a lot of marriages. One of the emphases of my degree was marriage and family therapy. And it's just always been a passion, like from the very beginning. We've always had people who've just poured into our life, mentors, teachers, just friends who would like pour into our life and just help us learn the importance of marriage. And so I'm so grateful to just have been able and humbled really to have been able to go on this journey with so many families. And we've learned a lot in this process, and we can't wait to share with you guys some of the things we've learned.
So, guys, we alluded to earlier that we want to give you a tool every single episode that you could be able to immediately utilize in your marriage. And so, if you found this podcast or this YouTube channel, this is the tool right now. This episode, I would encourage you, if you're listening to it by yourself, listen to it with your spouse, bring them into the conversation, share it with a friend, a couple that you may know that this may be beneficial to them. Consider subscribing to this channel. So that really brings exposure to Marriage Ignited and puts the word out there for us. So if you like this video, go ahead and like it, drop a like on it. And not only that is just tag your friends and share it on social media. Utilize it in that way to be able to invite them into this journey with you. We are going to bring new content every single week. Every
Yes.
Tuesday is the goal to bring you new content that is going to be not only beneficial but relevant and practical to be able to assist you in igniting your marriage.
So, you guys, we're going to be covering some really, really hard topics. We're
Yeah.
definitely going to be covering all the basic communication and conflict, forgiveness. We're going to be covering a lot of really hard topics, even infertility. We're going to share a little bit of our journey with infertility with
Mhm.
you guys. But we'd love to hear from you. What topics are you interested in? Will you drop in the comments some ideas that you have, or some needs that you have in your marriage, some ways that we can help support you through Marriage Ignited? So share in the comments some different topics that you would be interested in
Yes.
hearing. Coming up next Tuesday, you're going to hear the first official episode, which is going to be, we're going to be tackling the barriers to intimacy. Oh, this is such an important
Hmm.
topic in our world right now. If you think about growing in your relationship with your spouse, there are things that just get in the way of that are just barriers to that. So, we're going to be starting with barriers to emotional intimacy. We're going to also be talking about barriers to physical intimacy,
Oh yeah.
and even to spiritual intimacy. So,
Hmm.
you guys don't want to miss that next Tuesday. I know it's going to be a blessing to your marriage.
Well, God bless you guys, man. We are so excited to be along in this journey with you guys. I hope that you guys will just be along for the ride with us with Marriage Ignited. We look forward to bringing you great content, and we will see you guys next time.
See you next week, guys.
God bless y'all.